It was a beautiful June day on the Pacific Ocean in the year 1970 off the state of Washington, as a seagoing sailing ship was on a peaceful voyage over the briny deep. A seaman aboard her notified the ship's captain that he saw a bottle floating upon the surging wave and appeared to have a message inside. The vessel was brought about and returned to the spot where the barnacle bottle was lifted aboard. To the finder's surprise, it contained a letter addressed to the crew of the USS Pensacola, CA-24, stateside, USA. They could hardly believe their eyes because an American veteran heavy cruiser of the United States Navy, the USS Pensacola, was intentionally sunk by our own forces during target practice in that same vicinity 22 years before, in the year 1948. Well, as destiny would have it, the crew of that great ship, Pensacola, were having their second reunion in the city of Chicago that very month. Naturally, the bottle was delivered to them, where it was opened and read. To everyone there, it was a joyous and emotional event because it was a letter written in oil on weathered parchment by the Pensacola herself. The message was as follows. Dear old shipmates back in stateside, I know you are surprised to hear from me. It isn't often one hears from a ship, and especially after so many years. But I'm not just a ship to those of you that served aboard me. I'm the old USS Pensacola, CA-24. It is a shame we all can't be together at the reunion back there in the States, but just knowing you are having one makes me joyous, and your thoughts are coming on strong. Please excuse the handwriting, but I'm doing the best I can. And what little I know, I learned from you when you wrote letters home. I remember those days well. Oh yes, I remember, and I can think and feel also. Many a seaman through history has said, ships have souls, and some say not. But I'll tell you the truth, we do. We always act and look different when someone cares for and loves us. Sometimes you didn't show it, and there were times when I was cursed, but I knew deep down you didn't mean it. I cursed myself sometimes when the going got tough. I felt the sadness in your heart, and I saw that tear in your eye as we parted, and my heart felt sorrowful too. Naturally, we feel this way because we shared a large and dramatic portion of our lives together, and that makes a bond between us. Did you know I was as happy as you when we made Pearl Harbor or the Golden Gate? We sure loved to get stateside for a while. I worried about you too, even when you were making those liberties. Just like a mother hen, I was so glad to see you come wobbling back aboard and safe and sound in your bunks. Being born in the United States of America, I was proud to be part of the greatest armada that man ever placed upon the seas, the United States Navy. I was created by American hands to fight and protect the land we so dearly love. Many called me the workhorse of the Pacific. But regardless of my reputation, most of my days with you were pleasant and peaceful. I was also proud to have you as my crew. Those Second World War years were the most exciting years of my life. Remember how you nursed me and guided me back to Pearl Harbor after the Battle of Tassafaronga. Wow, wasn't that a night? We were off the island of Guadalcanal, where the United States Marines were giving their all in the South Pacific, and going up the dangerous slot where so many ships met their tragic death. That dark November night saw us with 4 cruisers and 6 destroyers. We were to stop a Japanese landing force from reaching Guadalcanal. We had them on radar, and a fierce sea battle would soon get underway. We lost a lot of ships in this area, like the Astoria and the Juno.
Yeah, I know. The Quincy, the Vincennes, and a whole lot of cans, too.
Hey, have they got any enemy on the radar yet?
Yeah, they have.
The Admiral just fired! Look at the enemy ships out there! Woo! They're firing back!
Minneapolis, New Orleans. Torpedoed, sir. Their bow's been blown away.
Aye, aye. 10 degrees to port.
We've been torpedoed! We've been torpedoed! Man the fire hoses! Man those fire hoses! Come on, move it, come on! Move!
I burned the rest of the night and well into the next morning. We later heard that the Northampton was sunk, and our own toll of dead and wounded was high. We slowly pulled into Tulagi Harbor with help of PT boats, an officer of which would become the President of the United States. Later that day, we were glad to see the battered remains of the Minneapolis and New Orleans come struggling into the harbor.
I'm glad you guys made it. Where are you from? I'm from New York. Where are you guys from?
It took us months
Chicago.
to return to Pearl. I can say now I didn't think I would make it. But with your help and courage, we came through. We were a sight when we sailed into Pearl Harbor months later. The other ships didn't even know who I was. But don't you laugh. You look like a lot of bums wearing the non-regulation clothing that was given to you by the Merchant Marine. Those beards of yours, were they ever a mess? We pulled up to the pier, and yardmen were there to greet us, as well as the Navy, all in parade dress. A large band struck up as our colors flew gracefully in the Hawaiian sky. You looked like a throng of civilians as you stood at attention. We heard the national anthem, and I choked up inside and was so proud. I also thought of those we had to leave behind, who paid so dearly and weren't there to share that inspiring moment. Some of their bodies were still trapped inside my lower compartments. We logged plenty of that war behind us. the Battle of Guadalcanal and Salamaua, the Ley Raid with the carrier Lexington, the decisive Battle of Midway, where we lost the Yorktown, the Bruin-Faisi Tonolai Raid, near the sinking of the carrier Wasp when she was destroyed by Southies, in fighting to save the carrier Hornet at her death in the vicious Battle of Santa Cruz. In that engagement, we operated with the carrier Hornet and screening cruisers Northampton, San Diego, and the heroic cruiser Juno. On the horizon was our carrier Enterprise, with many cruisers, including the battleship South Dakota and destroyers. Our mission was to intercept a large enemy force heading south with 3 carriers. That morning, 65 enemy planes were picked up on the radar, and their attack came first upon the Enterprise. The battleship South Dakota actually fired her 16-inch guns at the torpedo planes. She destroyed 26 of them. The enemy planes scored no hits on the Enterprise, which was hidden by a rain squall. But in less than 1 minute, a large wave of planes attacked our Hornet. Dive bombers followed by torpedo planes.
Torpedoes. Where's the Hornet? She's been hit real bad, sir.
4 more air attacks that afternoon as we received many dripping survivors of the Hornet, as well as Admiral Murray and his staff, some of whom were injured, and I became the flagship of the task force. To our sorrow, one of our own destroyers was left behind to sink the doomed Hornet that we all had grown to love. Our last sight of her in the sunset was Old Glory still waving above the Pacific.
The survivors of the Hornet assemble on the well deck.
We nursed the wounded and buried our dead at sea as we sailed away. And that was the final curtain on the Battle of Santa Cruz. Now, we the living had much more ahead, like Tarawa in the Gilbert Islands, the Marshalls and Palau raids, the daring bombardments of the Kurils off the coast of Asia, the Philippines, and who could ever forget the hell at Iwo Jima? There we were, with a huge task force. The flagship was the Nevada and other battleships, the Tennessee, Idaho, Arkansas, Texas, and the New York were there with the cruisers Vicksburg, Tuscaloosa, and the Estes with 15 destroyers. We of the Pensacola bombarded Iwo many times before. Because of that, the Japanese seemed to have a personal grudge against us. Since there were no other ships in the immediate vicinity, they targeted quickly upon us. The enemy guns began to fire from the towering cliffs of Iwo. They had our range.
A direct hit, and we need assistance. We are out of commission.
Aye, aye. We lost many officers and men, but we spent the best part of a month fighting night and day until the island was secure. There we witnessed our heroic Marines raising Old Glory atop Mount Suribachi. God bless them all. 25,000 men were killed and wounded to put it there. With my hull and topside still damaged, we were ordered to the Okinawa invasion, where our fighting forces saw 50,000 American men killed or wounded. And later, victory would be ours, including the occupation of Japan. We sure had been busy. We could reminisce for days, but you know it all well, and I was as joyful as you when those 4 years of war ended. I was successful in my missions, but not without your help, and I protected you from the cold and storm I could, and protected you while you slept. I experienced just about everything a ship could. My log bears the evidence. I endured severe storms and rough seas, collided with whales, was shaken by earthquake and tidal wave, strafed by planes, gripped by shore batteries, torpedoed in battle and gutted by fire. I used destructive weapons, the atomic bomb. Had ever an explosion. I pray it will never be used again, as we all know too well what war is. After the war, you soon went home to your families and friends, but I had no one to go to, and I was left alone. All I had in the world was my crew. It wasn't long before I came to my journey's end, and it came sooner than I wanted, because life had been exciting and rather full for me. I guess when our time comes, none of us are ever ready to go. I saw many fine men and great ships go into that mysterious beyond. And it was now my turn. The military prepared and towed me out to sea, to my final resting place. The last sounds I heard of home off the coast of Washington were buoy bells echoing the rhythm of the waves and the call of the seagulls that glided in the wind. I felt so worn and obsolete, and yet I was only here 19 years. It was then I realized more than ever how important all of you were to me in the past, for no one was there to protect me or guide my rudder. Grief was now my only companion as I looked toward the southern sky where we all shared so much together. I wouldn't have wanted you to see me like this as I floated so helplessly. My decks and compartments where you once lived, worked, and fought were now void. The silence was almost more than I could bear. To most of the armed forces, that day was only routine target practice. But to me, it was the last curtain call and a dramatic end to a true life story of men and their ship that gave a fine performance at a period outstanding in American history. We all know very few ships can boast such a record as ours. I now tried to be as courageous as we all were in the past, as the death blows were upon me. They struck their mark well, again and again, and I cried out in a convulsion of pain. Not a living man heard my voice. The birds floating on the sea breeze heard it. The waves caressing my wounded sides heard it, and my voice echoed like a thunderclap through the clouds. And at the same moment, the spirits of our beloved dead shipmates heard it. Sea water began rushing into my lungs and was swiftly replacing my precious air. As I thought I was about to breathe my last, I heard beautiful notes from a trumpeting bugle. As if in a dream, all of our old shipmates that we thought we left behind began to assemble on my decks, including those who had joined their ranks since. It was then I knew that we were no more blessed than the dead for having survived. I knew also for the first time I was catching up to them, and was it I who was left for another day? Was I delirious? Was I having a dream? If it were a dream, I did not want to awaken, and yet it was like an awakening, because there they all were, officers, sailors, and Marines, as a lonely parting suddenly became a joyous reunion with those old comrades gathering aboard me. I never saw so many captains on my bridge at one time. Familiar words of fallen rank were heard, and the command, attention, and they snapped to with pomp and vigor. They never looked better standing there in navy blue and khaki. Several others made their way across my deck, carrying a huge wreath, and they laid it carefully on my well deck. And on it was an inscription, honor and devotion to our old Pensacola, written in flowers picked from all over America. The roll was then called, and one by one they answered up loud and clear. It was good to hear their names and voices again. All present and accounted for was the word passed, and all of them saluted as the most glorious colors I'd ever seen was hoisted to my mainmast. The red stripes were like patterns of crimson taken from a South Sea sunset. The white as if it were cut from the garments of angels, and the stars, the brightest of heaven, placed neatly in an ultramarine blue. The chaplain then gave a eulogy, and preparations were made to get underway. The anchor was lifted from my heart as I felt familiar hands take hold of my wheel. And then the finest crew that I could ever choose or hope to know sailed me once again gently and gracefully on my final voyage and on a course that led us to the harbor of eternal peace. A fond farewell, for now, my comrades, I'll take the liberty to speak for all of your old pals that are here with me when I say, God bless all of you and Godspeed in whatever you endeavor, and continue to defend your flag and country, right or even if you believe in error, and help keep America the Beautiful a constant inspiration to the world. Please don't try to answer this letter, because there are no mail calls here. Better still, your thoughts and prayers come in loud and clear. So in the years to come, when you feel you are at the end of your voyage in this troubled but beautiful world, just whisper a prayer and we'll all be there. So, until another time, anchors away, my boys. I remain forever your old Pensy pal, USS Pensacola, CA 24.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise?
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please remain standing while we bow our heads in grateful memory of our pals who made the supreme sacrifice for our country, and in memory of your sons who fought in Korea and Vietnam, many of whom were lost. With their kind of courage, hope for America is strengthened. We pray that our present fighting forces will carry with them the same spirit found in the Pensacola's letter, which reflects the dedication of our fighting forces who fought from Pearl Harbor on land and sea, and on such great ships such as the Arizona, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Langley, Princeton, Saratoga, and Independence, with the brave cruisers Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, Helena, Honolulu, and Indianapolis. We must never forget or overlook our unsung heroes, the American destroyers, Reuben James, Barton, Cushing, Laffey, O'Brien, Monsignor, Abner Reed, Mohan, Bush, and Ward, which is only a small part of 82 that were sunk. We remember and honor them alongside our courageous submarine fleet that made a great contribution toward victory. As time wears away the vividness of war into misty memories, let us hope and pray that our younger generations use the same hard-earned and precious freedom wisely to help make an even greater America in the name of our Lord and God.